Hello everybody, welcome back to the WTF1 podcast. It's the Italian Grand Prix edition and it is pure buzzing, pure hype. I cannot wait to talk about this race. My name's Matthew Gallagher, of course, and joining me is the WTF1 founder and quite possibly the luckiest winner of Fall Guys ever, Tom Bellingham. Well done. Hello, welcome. One crown to your name and also the Italian Grand Prix watch under your belt. How do you feel today?
Great, yeah. Me and Gasly getting our first wins this weekend. Obviously, mine was a little bit more special, but what a win from Gasly, nevertheless.
I mean, what was technically a better, like more of a home win? AlphaTauri winning at Monza or you winning in your own home at Fall Guys?
Exactly. More of a home win, I think. You're right.
Exactly. So 3-word race reviews. Let's dive straight in. I'm feeling hyped. I'm feeling buzzing. And I think everybody watching is still going to be on very much a high after this race. We've got Lee Martin 7654 with thank you, K-Mag. Alex Tharapos, reverse grid, please. Lachlan Hayes, Mercedes leave sport. And J. Lauren Olesen, Pierre effing Gasly.
Damn right.
Damn right. Firstly, yes, thank you, K-Mag. Reverse grid, please. Very hot topic. Mercedes leave sport. I don't want them to leave. I just want them to be worse.
Yeah.
And Pierre effing Gasly.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, let's just dive straight into my 3-word race review because I think it ties in quite nicely. My 3-word race review, still haven't processed. I haven't. I genuinely still haven't gotten over what happened yesterday. I was kind of just sat there looking at the TV screen going, nah.
This can't be real.
This is not real, but it cannot be. Gasly's winning from Sainz and Stroll.
Unbelievable.
What?
Yeah, we've always talked, haven't we, about, oh, well, at least the midfield's great. And then this was a race, I think we made a joke out of it, actually, that everyone's saying, well, imagine how good F1 would be if we had no Mercedes and no Red Bull, or at least put them back in the pack. And that is exactly what happened in that race. And I genuinely don't think I've been more excited during a race than that for a very, very, very long time. My heart rate monitor on my Apple Watch, I shared a picture of it. And you can literally see when the Italian Grand Prix happened and when the safety car kind of came out and put Gasly in net lead. You're right, still haven't processed it. I've watched the French commentary of Gasly's victory about 10 times this morning. I watched it about 50 times last night.
That's one way to learn your French, isn't it? Yeah, I'm completely the same. Let's go into a question that kind of links in nicely. Side Verstappen, what made this race so exciting compared to the others that could be seen as boring or less entertaining? Well, I mean, obviously, the fact is that Monza was quite a closely contested race anyway, obviously with the engine mode restrictions coming into force so that Mercedes couldn't use their extra special party mode. Kind of brought the field a little bit closer, but also took Red Bull out of the equation by the looks of things and really affected at least the Red Bull side for the Honda, even though obviously AlphaTauri won. Another point obviously being that Hamilton had that stop-go penalty. He was dominating out in front. And another thing that was really important was Bottas getting caught up in lap 1 because he obviously is in a Mercedes. And I think if he was at the front, he would have been able to control it. Fine. But he got very much mixed up in that midfield and then couldn't touch the likes of Lando Norris for a good 15 laps before we had that red flag.
The engine mode one was a funny one because we were complaining, weren't we, after qualifying? Oh, my word. They've done exactly what they said. Mercedes are even faster. They were nearly a full second clear of third in qualifying. But actually, it meant that when Mercedes were shuffled back into the pack, like Bottas and then Hamilton when he got his penalty, it wasn't as easy as you thought because they couldn't just whack the engine up on full. They had to obviously stick to what they were going to do, which I imagine was an engine mode to lead out from the front. And again, we saw Mercedes kind of struggling in dirty air. But to answer that question from side Verstappen, if you imagine, I'm certainly not complaining about this race at all, not one bit. But
you better not, because I'll be coming for you.
No, not at all. It was incredible. But in terms of like the entertainment came from the unpredictability. There was a lot of overtakes, maybe not the craziness we had like a Germany or a Interlagos, but the craziness came from the fact that we have spent years and years and years and years going into every single race thinking Mercedes will win, and if they don't, there's a very slim chance maybe Red Bull and Ferrari might. And to have a race where not a single Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull was on the podium, no one could have predicted that. Maybe there was the chance that it was a different podium sitter because Red Bull were out the equation and it was still a Mercedes 1-2 and someone grabbed third. But Gasly, Sainz, Stroll, I still cannot get over that was the podium. It's even just saying it now, a whole day later, pretty much, it still is unbelievable.
Yeah, I completely agree. Gasly obviously won that race from the start because Stroll was technically in P1. Obviously, Hamilton had the penalty. Stroll started in P2, didn't have the grip. Gasly got an absolute belter of a start. And I was a little bit disappointed with Crofty because he didn't really commentate like that was for the battle for the lead. And he was kind of focusing a few cars behind when Gasly had just got the start of his life and would have been in a net P1. So I felt like that was almost a little bit underwhelming at the start of that restart. But yeah, obviously it's the underdog, isn't it? It's the amazing underdog story, what Gasly represented, and also the fact that Gasly was a tiny bit slower than Sainz, who was a tiny bit slower than Stroll, I guess, in terms of pace, raw performance. So the fact that we had that tension as well, where Sainz was slowly eking into Gasly's lead, and then on the last lap gets DRS.
Yeah.
And if he'd just had one more lap, Sainz would have been through. And that's just another thing that just kind of crescendoed that whole race into something incredible.
We've had races before, like you say, where it's been a Ferrari and a Mercedes maybe. I think Hamilton was closing down Charles in exactly the same way, which was no doubt an incredible race. But it really just shows that when you have a mixed up order and there's different people at the front, it just makes it 10 times more exciting because you always felt when you had the safety car restart, there was still in my mind thinking, well, surely Bottas has got this because he's still fourth and he's only got a couple of McLarens to get through and an Alpha Tauri. You think he'll do it. And then, no, it kind of panned out being...
was he fourth? I think he was about sixth, no?
Oh, I guess the Alphas were in there and Charles. But once that panned out, Kimmy, he was obviously like net fourth, I guess. But it's a telling stat that this is the first time a non-Mercedes, Red Bull or Ferrari podium since the middle of 2012, so 8 years. And I think that just shows how long we've waited for a race like this.
Yeah, it does. I'm still not convinced Bottas was a net P4 because he didn't even finish fourth.
Sorry. No, not net P4, net P5.
Because Norris,
net P5, yeah.
Yeah, Bottas finished fifth. Yeah, cool. All right, just wanted to clear that up before I
before the
feel
comments.
The comments coming in. Let's move on to another question. The fast track. Why is it the FIA set the rule that you have a standing start following a red flag to mix things up? Great idea, in my opinion. But you can claim your mandatory pit stop under the flag, gaining you 25 seconds. Unfair, no? Yeah, this was something I didn't actually have clarification on until, this race, because in my head, I was thinking that he'd be able to change tyres, but that wouldn't count as his mandatory pit stop. But it turned out it was, which I find a very strange ruling.
It is odd. We had this question probably more than any other question in the podcast. And I know Lando was very critical of it in his comments after the race and slated it and felt like he'd kind of been robbed of a podium a little bit because Stroll had looked into it. It's such an unusual, I guess, from my point of view, it's such an unusual scenario. The only time I can remember where this has happened, where they've kind of changed stuff under red flag, was Vettel at Monaco in like 2011, which benefited him massively because his tyres were about to go off. But even then, he'd already made a pit stop. So it wasn't, I guess The weird thing is that it's a mandatory pit stop behind the safety car. Is it a pit stop if it's essentially on the grid that you're just changing your tyres? It's a very odd rule, but I mean, this is the first time it's come up in 10 years. So it's so rare for it to happen. And maybe part of it is because people don't like Stroll very much, like the public perception. Some people unfortunately beat up on Stroll a bit, and the fact that Lando, who's no doubt one of the kind of fan favourites, has been denied a podium. But for me, it's just one of those things. And look at Gasly. He benefited hugely from the pit lane being closed. You could argue, no one's arguing, oh, why was the pit lane closed? Because in that case, it made Gasly win the race, which we're all buzzing about. So it's just a random rule which happened, and unfortunately it's going to screw people and benefit people, but so does a safety car, so does a virtual safety car, so does a random red flag in the middle of a race. It happens.
Yeah, I guess the idea of the red flag is to reset things, isn't it? If you're a lap down, you're not a lap down going into the next session, are you, in terms of the next race? It's a red flag, and it's a clean slate as far as I'm aware. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it would absolutely have screwed Stroll, wouldn't it? Because people were wanting to pit around that time. So if he hadn't have been able to do it, he would have essentially started the race in a net P1 and then had to make a pit stop, and he would have dropped to last. So it screwed him loads.
I do find it weird though, yeah, because obviously, not a lot of teams will bet on a red flag coming out, although I reckon Haas will now from now on, to be honest. Just leave Grosjean out on hards and just see what happens. But yeah, I can kind of see both ways. I'm glad that Stroll was able to just be in the mix rather than getting completely shafted, because their argument, I guess, would be, why should we have to take even more of a penalty after a red flag? But
that's not their
fault. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. But at the same time, I think for the viewing spectacle, it's good to have everybody reset, just purely from a fact that we get this amazingly unpredictable race.
I loved
anyway,
it.
Let's move on.
Actually, one thing that that was slightly mentioned in that question, standing start. I'd completely forgotten about that was a rule. I don't think we've seen it. I think someone mentioned that we've not seen it since 2001, that we've had a standing start after a red flag.
Isn't that what it normally was, though?
I don't remember seeing a standing start like that from a red flag. Maybe there has been one, but I was surprised when it came up. I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. I was ready for them for behind the safety car.
Completely in the. I was completely in. I don't know if I was the only one, but I expected a standing start after a red flag, because I think that's normal procedure. But I guess we just don't ever see.
I think they only announced
red flags
2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Is it because I think it's because most of the time when a red flag is flown, it's probably because it's really heavy rain, and then maybe they decide then to start things behind the safety car.
That's probably why we've not seen it before.
Whereas this is obviously dry.
Yeah. I know, it's really good to see. I really liked that. It felt like a second
cool.
mini race after the race.
It did. Two races at a weekend?
Yeah, who'd have thought?
God forbid. Wow. Danny Blazin says there should be a defined and recognised rule or review of the rule that pit lane will always be immediately closed upon a safety car introduction. No. No, because safety car... There's no point closing the pit lane if the safety car, or the reason for the safety car, is in the middle sector, for example. The only reason that the pit lane was closed was because Magnussen was on the entry to the pit lane, right? That's the reason that they decided to do that.
Yeah, I guess the argument is it made the race absolutely bloody amazing. It's funny, actually.
But that was just because of a Mercedes slip-up, wasn't it? Without Hamilton doing that...
Yeah, true.
The flags were out. But so it is a Mercedes mess up.
But it is an interesting theory, because back in 2008, I'm sure we spoke about it on a That Time When podcast way back, that they did actually used to do this, where a safety car would come out, they'd close the pit lane, everyone bunches up, and then they open it. It's kind of a bit like what they do in IndyCar, but
that's carnage, isn't it? They don't want that in the pit lane.
That is the thing. It's sketchy. We get many unsafe releases it is with these cars. Imagine all 20 cars coming in on the same lap, which we kind of saw a little bit there, and they didn't show too much of it. But I remember watching it going, oh, there's a lot of sketchy rejoins there, because everyone's trying to get out at the same time. Everyone's in the pit. It's just chaos. And I think it would be carnage, but maybe it's a little bit too ridiculous because it would endanger the mechanics and things. So.
Exactly, and I think that's the reason why they probably don't do that. So, the Onion Bargy, great name. Surely reverse grids must be inevitable going forward. No. I mean, as much as we've seen that this is a cool thing, there has been a few pretty apt points about the reason that it's so special is because it never happens. And if we manufacture wins like this in the future, will it feel the same? And I don't think anything will be as special as a Gasly win at Monza if we were to then implement reverse grids. But at the same time, we got great racing. But just so you know, we will be releasing a special bonus podcast on this subject this week with a very special guest. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. Won't go into any more detail.
We'll save it for, if you enjoy the WTF1 podcast, you're getting 2 this week. Aren't you lucky? If the race wasn't good enough, you get 2 podcasts.
Yep. And the guest is very cool. So That's all I'll say. Right, moving on. Tommy, your 3-word race review.
My 3-word race review is scrolling down to try and find it. Here we go. Don't go back. And this is about a certain Pierre Gasly who, I'm a little bit like, should he go back there? I personally don't think he should. We've seen, it would have been easy to think that Pierre Gasly's career was over when he got demoted. And it's unbelievable to think that he has now not only got a podium, but now a race win before essentially Verstappen's teammate in that Red Bull seat has even got a podium, Albon or Gasly, when they were there. So there will inevitably be talk again, because there was talk already with Gasly having such an amazing year. And he's won a race. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's won a Formula One race in an AlphaTauri, and now he is going to be such a huge prospect for teams, whether that's Red Bull or another team. But at the end of the day, look what happened to Sainz last year when he had his amazing drive in the midfield. He got a Ferrari seat. Pierre Gasly not only is arguably the best driver this year alongside Hamilton and Verstappen, he's now a proven race winner, and he's shown that he can withstand pressure and deliver when he's got the chance. So I think he's going to have some other teams interested, and it's not necessarily Red Bull that he needs to be going back to, because I think that would be career suicide again.
Yeah, I saw an article from Luke Smith, F1, who he said that Pierre has said he's ready to go back if Red Bull will let him. So I
did. That was very interesting.
That's concerning.
Yeah. I was like, no.
I think in the short term, this is the only route Pierre will have to a race-winning car. In the long term, it really does depend on what went wrong before and whether it can be corrected again. Because clearly something is wrong there that needs to be changed. Are Red Bull even going to take Pierre back? I don't think so. But I think Pierre's putting pressure back on Red Bull here by saying these kind of things. I don't know. I've already tweeted about this, and I personally think he should just go to another team and just carve his future there, even if it means a few years at a Renault or something, where, you've got the likes of Ocon, who's not performing at the moment. He might have another year at Renault, because I don't think Renault's going to drop him anytime soon, but that could be an opportunity for him to go to a works team. It's difficult, but for me, my gut feeling is don't go back, because of how bad it went and what a laughingstock he became. And as you say, it could be career suicide. But at the same time, we can't look at it so negatively, because if Pierre wants to go back, clearly
he's got the confidence.
He thinks clearly he thinks he can turn around whatever was wrong.
Very true. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, that I saw some very interesting points that this result almost has exposed that second driver seat at Red Bull. Don't get me wrong, I'm the last person to take something away from Max Verstappen, but it has definitely shown that for whatever reason, if you can't score a podium in that Red Bull as Max Verstappen's teammate, and you can win a race in an AlphaTauri and score a podium in an AlphaTauri, there's something not quite right there, whether that's just literally just a simple fact that the team are building it around Verstappen and they have every right to. But maybe Verstappen's driving style is so unique that people find it hard to adapt to, and the second driver is just not got a chance. So,
well, there's already been news, isn't there, about the fact that that Albon and Verstappen haven't had the same parts this season, and things like that, which obviously puts Albon on the back foot because he hasn't been getting the upgrades that Verstappen has been getting. So clearly there is something there. I don't know whether or not that news was supposed to be released by Red Bull, but it's out.
Yeah,
and clearly Verstappen is favoured without a doubt. You know, that's the nature of such a team when they've got such an amazing driver. But usually the number two or the teammate is still able to perform, and that's something that we haven't really seen before in such a good car, that the teammate is so far off.
Yeah, very odd situation, and this has just made it even more messy for Red Bull and difficult for them. Ironically, that they're junior.
I wonder what the higher.
Could you imagine?
I wonder what the higher powers are saying right now. Very interesting.
You'd never have imagined that a Red Bull B team winning a race would be a problem for them, but it actually is. How mad is that?
They've won as many races as Red Bull this year.
Yes, and
that's
Gasly's
crazy,
won the same number as Bottas. Yikes.
And Verstappen.
Yeah, crazy.
Right. AEK Online, where does Pierre go next and when? Surely he can't stay with AlphaTauri for much longer, but what options might he have? He deserves a team who treat him better than Red Bull ever did. Obviously, we've kind of tapped into this, but obviously AlphaTauri is not going to be a race-winning team. They're a B team to Red Bull. They'll always be usually behind them unless we have a crazy race like we did in Monza. Renault could be an option down the line. Obviously, he's French as well. It's a good connection that I'm sure Renault have explored in the past, maybe.
Wonder if they're feeling like if Ocon doesn't perform, maybe they've not got the right French driver in the car. If Ocon... I don't think Ocon's been as bad as people are really like going ham on him, but...
it's a similar gap
that
Bottas has to Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly. So was he going to beat Danny Rick in his first year back in Formula One after a year out? Probably not. He should be closer. But
the hype was there.
The hype was there. That's the thing. I think the hype was there. The fact that everyone was saying, get Ocon in that Mercedes, Bottas is useless. And now he's got a chance alongside Danny Rick and he's not really performing that well. I did think Renault as well. Obviously, they've just announced they're going to be Alpine next year.
Is that how you say it?
Alpine, I believe. There's probably French.
I'm going to call it Alpine.
I think it's Alpine, but people
probably. Sounds a bit more
there's
French.
Probably some French people shouting now which one is the right one. The weird thing is, and such is the nature of Formula One, that Pierre Gasly has essentially peaked in his career when a lot of the seats are kind of being snapped up. If he'd have done this when Ferrari seat was free or Bottas hadn't signed his contract or something, I don't know. But interestingly, I wonder, however much Fernando Alonso is an incredible driver, and I'm very excited to see him back. I think he still, it's going to be really exciting to see him in F1. I wonder if they hadn't have signed him and this whole shenanigans had not gone on a little bit more, they would have signed Gasly.
Potentially, I think they would have been a lot cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess Gasly has turned it around hugely this season, and who knows? He might. Mercedes might come sniffing.
I did think
we don't know.
I did think that this is an interesting one that I was thinking about. George Russell. It would be awful if they didn't promote George Russell after what he's had to go through, be a Formula One driver. Oh, poor him. But essentially, he's in a Williams, can't perform, and he believes that he will get that Mercedes drive as soon as Hamilton goes or Bottas goes. However, maybe Gasly's putting them in a bit of a predicament because George, no doubt, is incredible and has had amazing qualifying results, but in the races, he's in a Williams, let's be honest, but there have been a few races where he's maybe slipped up a little bit, and Latifi nearly scored a point again, and Kubica scored a point in that race in Germany.
where Russell made a mistake.
Russell made a mistake, and Gasly has now made himself to a point where top teams cannot ignore him because he has proved under pressure, if I'm in the lead, I will win the race. And you can't do anything more than that. He's won a race in an AlphaTauri, and big teams are going to have to take notice because he does not belong in that car anymore if he's won a race.
Yeah, I think it's an unlikely prospect for Mercedes to go for Gasly over Russell, because I think Russell is their kind of next superstar, and they've invested heavily into him. And you know I'm sure they've been analysing Russell's performances down to a T. So I think Pierre's more likely to go to a Renault. I think there aren't really any other teams that I would say that would be a good move, just purely because I don't think any of the others are going to be completely front running, like Racing Point. That seems like
locked up.
Well, I mean, there's only ever going to be one seat available for that for the foreseeable. And that's obviously Aston Martin turning into.
But then Renault. Is Renault a sideways step because of the fact that they don't seem to be getting anywhere? We've had another race where they've managed not to score a podium when we've had three.
I guess moving into the new regs though, right?
Maybe.
Like right now that Danny Rick wasn't expecting Renault to be right at the front. Obviously, he's moving to McLaren, but I think Renault are probably one of the only shouts where you could probably put a bet on and say, okay, right, maybe they will be near the front again when the new regs hit. Whereas an AlphaTauri, a Racing Point, they're always going to be behind Mercedes or they're going to be behind Red Bull. So interesting. But either way, moving on. Sainz and Stroll on the podium. Let's talk about that. We've spoken about Gasly winning. Let's talk about the other two. Crazy. George_Tucker4. Could Lance's performances recently help him keep his seat for next year? Since he is ahead of Perez, will this make the team more comfortable with letting Perez go? I mean, George, do you not know who's in charge of the team? It doesn't matter how Lance performs. He's going to stay in Formula One as long as he wants to stay, and his dad can pretty much say Lance has got 1 point this season.
That being said, there was talk that it's not completely out of the question. I know this is Lance saying it, and he was like, if I'm not good enough, my dad can fire me.
But it's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah, but Lance has been underrated this year, and while he's no doubt fortunate with the red flag, Perez wasn't really a factor in that race. And I think George is right that the backlash, if they'd announced it at the start of this year, say they do go with Vettel and Stroll, they announced it at the start of this year, people would be like, wow, daddy's money, Stroll doesn't deserve to be there. I think a lot more people would now be thinking, well, Stroll's fourth in the title, and there'd be a lot less hate, because I've almost changed my mind that I think if you had to choose between Stroll and Perez now, there's not... It's equal, and then you'd go, Lance Stroll is a lot younger, so he's got the more potentially. So I genuinely think that it's got to a point where Stroll is the better option than Perez, which I did not expect to be saying this year. And fair play to Lance Stroll, with all the haters, all the people saying that he's only there. He's fourth, not fourth. No, he is fourth in the title, isn't he? No,
I don't know. You check that whilst I talk. But yeah, not to take away, obviously, I say that in the sense that he has an advantageous position within the team. But not to say that Lance hasn't been performing, because he has. He's got another podium to his name now. He's got 2 podiums. He's doing what Sergio kind of does when it's a crazy race. He's there, and kind of taking in his footsteps in a little way, in a little way, which is really strange to say, because his main downfall before was qualifying.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's sorted that out now quite massively, to be honest. So, for me, I think Sergio Perez is still the more consistent over the season, barring these crazy races. But I don't think Sergio has been as much in the mix as maybe we expect him to be.
No.
I think it's more Sergio underperforming than it is Lance overperforming.
You're right. Like
really,
what you were saying earlier about the seat being... Stroll's automatically, the only thing Perez can do to have a hope of that seat is to absolutely annihilate Stroll, and he's not even come close. So he Stroll is 4th in the world title. Not bad going.
That's ridiculous. That's really good. I guess Lando's quite close behind him,
They're equal on points. But I guess better results put Stroll ahead. And they're now, nearly 10 points clear of Albon, Leclerc, Gasly and Sainz. So, what a underrated year for Stroll. He's doing really, really well. Credit to where it's due.
Give Lance some credit. I think that's the... he's turning it around. 100%. He really is. Yeah. And as I've said many times, if you take a look at pay drivers from years gone by and then you compare it to Lance Stroll, they are worlds apart.
We were saying that even when he wasn't performing. Yeah.
Exactly. Sam TF12, would Carlos have won if they had all the engine modes? Don't know. I mean, it seemed like it affected Honda more than it did anyone else by the looks of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's something that we won't ever be able to answer. It's all hypothetical.
I guess where that comes in is that on the final lap, they're allowed to dump all their electrical energy. And that's when Sainz obviously closed a huge amount. So not that they have a party mode, but they can essentially use it all at the end. So they essentially have that kind of party mode effect. It's interesting that Sainz, he was desperate for that win, wasn't he? And you really saw a difference between drivers and a team because you had McLaren on the radio thinking we're in P2 and P4, and they weren't telling him to not go for it, but they very much were saying things like, "Okay, be sensible." You don't.
They were telling him not to go for it.
They were.
Right? That was code, wasn't it? I mean,
Carlos Sainz was ready to send it. I think Carlos Sainz had it in his head that he was ready to bin or win that race.
Absolutely, he was a little bit, fair play to him.
And that's what you want to see, because he's thinking, and you totally understand, because people will not remember, obviously will remember it's a crazy race, but as much Carlos Sainz finishing second in that race because Gasly won it. Whereas McLaren, their thought behind it is, we need these points in the Constructors' Championship because it's a huge, huge, huge result for us to finish 2nd and 4th. We're going to get the most points out of any team, and we don't want to throw it away. But Carlos was there. He was like, I want this win. And he...
Yeah, and he didn't, did he?
And he had a little look into the... he was way too far back. But
Turn 1,
that, to me, proves that if it had been one more lap, he would have gone for it 100%.
He probably would have been clear of him, to be honest, because I think he was only like half a second behind, was he, when he was going over the line. So
how disappointing. I mean, no, it would have been incredible to see Carlos Sainz, and no disrespect to him, but if Sainz had just done him with a really boring DRS pass on the last lap, that would have been a bit of a downer, I think.
Yeah, it was so nerve-wracking, wasn't it? I really wanted Gasly to win over Sainz. I have nothing against Sainz, but Sainz has his kind of future paved out for him. He's going to Ferrari, as much as that's not the best move right now. But, he's got this great move, a dream come true, whereas Gasly, obviously, all the stuff that's gone on with him, with his personal life and also career, I just wanted him to win so bad.
Me too, yeah.
And, some people are really sad Carlos didn't win, but look, Carlos will probably win in the future, especially if Ferrari firmly back both himself and Leclerc for the future. So I didn't feel as bad for Carlos. And it is weird to see the teams. McLaren obviously really happy about getting that amount of points, but you could see they were almost a little bit dejected as well because they came so close to a win, which was just crazy to even think about because... Carlos was almost dejected, wasn't he? He was like, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I think he said on the team.
There's a fantastic picture of Carlos Sainz where a photographer's got looking down at him on his car when he gets in park firm, and he stood on it, and there's just anguish in his face, and you can literally tell, if you'd not even seen the race, you can tell the look on that picture is, I'm really happy, but also really sad.
Right, let's move on. No Mercedes or Red Bull on the podium.
Wowee.
When's the last time that happened, Tommy?
Well, I said before, the last time it was no Merc, Ferrari or Red Bull. I know it was 2012, so it's been a long old time.
It's been 8 years. Brandon Garden 2. Does Bottas retain his seat next year, as despite his penalty, at least Lewis put up a fight to climb the grid, whereas Bottas, in my opinion, didn't show anything to make up places? I don't think Mercedes will move anything around unless they foresee that their performance advantage that they have over the other teams is becoming slimmer and slimmer and slimmer, because we've mentioned this before. Bottas can easily sit in P2 most of the time, even if he is behind Hamilton and lacking a bit of pace. But if we have them in the mix with the McLarens and the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, one day maybe, that's when the conversations will happen. Because Bottas's performance, when we get to ABCDF1, I'm going to absolutely slate him because it was dreadful, awful performance from Bottas. Like no. I know that he'll have his excuses that he wasn't able to turn up the engine and pass people, but it was awful.
I mean, we mentioned in ABCDF1 that if Bottas in that car gets beaten by Verstappen, he gets a C. And we're really stood here where he's finished fifth.
Are you standing?
Sorry, sat here. Fifth.
You've been standing this whole podcast, Tommy.
New fitness regime. Fifth in a race where the cars in front of him were Gasly, Sainz, Stroll, and Lando Norris, and he still didn't manage to get on the podium. Are you joking? And I looked at actually the result, and Hamilton was, I think, 10 seconds behind Bottas at the end. And he was 30 seconds off last place with about 25 laps to go.
No, it was 30 seconds off the lead.
Off the lead, was it?
When he came out.
Okay, so it was... so how long would he have been off?
But he still managed to catch up. So he's probably 20, 25 behind Bottas at the beginning and also had to pass people.
Yeah, mad.
So, yeah, it's
he
crazy.
Should have won that.
He should have, and he didn't even get past one person. Yep. Dat_House89. Why is no one talking about Red Bull? Both Mercedes finally mess up, and what does Red Bull do to capitalise? DNF for Max after doing absolutely nothing amongst the field, and Albon was second to last. Yeah, it was a weird old race for Red Bull, wasn't it? Verstappen, you would expect to be there or thereabouts, like he usually is when Mercedes cock up, but he was in the midfield and was losing positions when I saw it rather than gaining. And it just seemed like Red Bull, just in general, just didn't have the car underneath them to really challenge.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Awful weekend. I went into the weekend expecting this might be the chance where some midfield team could get on the podium, because Red Bull do not do particularly well at Monza. It's their weakest track by far. However, in my head was Verstappen maybe fourth or fifth, not, like you say, it's not even like he retired from fourth or fifth. He was absolutely nowhere. The car was apparently overheating and all sorts. You can tell, I guess you can kind of sympathise why he was mad, because it's a huge opportunity that Hamilton has gone out the race, which never happens. Out the race, but you know what I mean. And Albon, 15th, behind George Russell in a Williams, I believe. And just to make matters worse, AlphaTauri with the same engine won the race. So
doesn't make sense.
It's
really
unbelievable. It's not almost a non-talking point. Like they're right. Dahouse89 saying, why is no one talking about Red Bull? It's not really mentioned, but it's absolutely insane, isn't it?
It's a huge slip up from Red Bull, just purely because, as we said, Hamilton was never usually out of position like that. Max was second in the championship. He could have easily got it within a race win again, which is crazy to think that, Verstappen could have put himself in a really good position, potentially, if Red Bull have some good races coming up. We don't know how the cars are really going to perform at Mugello and Portimao and all these, Bahrain Outer. There's quite a few uncertainties moving forward in the season, and I think this was a huge opportunity for Red Bull, which I think they're going to be kicking themselves.
Yeah, we said, didn't we, that it's very unlikely, but what Verstappen needs is Hamilton to DNF or not score points. And then it's on the cards, and when that did happen, they just were nowhere. So, yeah, hugely disappointing.
Indeed. Right, we move on to ABCDEF1. Play the jingle.
Now it's time for ABCDEF1.
Right, let's start at the very top of this sheet, not top of the standings. Hamilton.
What is Hamilton
going to get? I still think he's getting an A.
Yeah, he did everything.
I don't know. Well, yeah, I mean, seeing the flags. I know he said he didn't see them, and it's mainly the team's mess up. But I mean, is that where we're docking him points from an A star? Because he did nothing really wrong apart from that penalty.
Yeah, he drove away at the start. Had the penalty. You know,
I mean, can you blame Hamilton for that? I don't know.
You can't, but I don't think we can give him a perfect score. But I think an A is justifiable. People will be like, "Oh, we finished 7th," and give him a C. But no, he drove an amazing race.
It's down to the performance, not.
It wasn't his fault, and I think I do sympathise that. I did find it strange that there's no traffic light. I'm not making an excuse because Mercedes should have known because everyone else knew. Lane, But it is strange that there's no traffic light. So, I think an A for Hamilton.
Okay, let's give him an A. I think A star would feel a bit weird with him finishing 7th. But I mean, again, there was a slip up in there. We can slightly blame Hamilton for it, so I think that's where we're going to demote into.
Let me just get some popcorn before you talk about Bottas.
Oh, let me just stretch for this one. Valtteri Bottas.
7th on lap, what? Was he 7th or 6th? 6th from 2nd.
6th, yeah.
And then, I saw a really funny tweet. I think it was from Eli GP that was like, Bottas, my brakes have gone. Mercedes, no. Bottas, engine problem?
I've got a puncture.
Yeah, puncture. Yeah, no. Engine? Just constantly like, there must be something wrong. And oh my word, what a shocker. 5th in a race.
E.
Yeah, it's definitely
E.
Yeah.
That was Valtteri Bottas. I know you watch this podcast, so take notes. It's just so bad. He got a terrible start. It was a terrible start, but he only got eaten up by Sainz at that point. Then Norris pulled an absolute worldie on him.
What a move that was.
Fair. Bottas then was still behind Norris. Then he goes wide at Lesmo 2.
That lets Stroll and Ricciardo... Or was it Perez? No, Perez, wasn't it?
Yes.
Perez and Ricciardo through.
Was it Perez? I thought it was Stroll.
Perez was higher up. Yeah, it was Perez. Yeah, it was.
Okay. So Perez got through, and then Ricciardo sends it up the inside at Ascari. And Bottas is just a sitting duck. He might have no tyre temp or whatever, blah, 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 excuses. Rubbish. And then once he's settled in, he doesn't make any moves whatsoever. Then the second then the red flag, then the second race, doesn't make any moves, doesn't make any sort of impact on the cars in front in that Mercedes, where I think I was actually a little bit too critical on Hamilton in IBR because I said that he was kind of struggled to get through traffic. He didn't really. I think it was just purely from seeing him behind Albon for a lap or two. I was like, oh, he's struggling.
And
but
I will just say for people as well that will inevitably be commenting, well, Hamilton was passing Williamses and stuff. It's like, he passed Perez, and he passed Perez, didn't he, in the Racing Point and stuff.
Yeah, passed Perez.
Red Bull, decent enough cars. Renault's, was he ahead of Renault? I can't remember, but Perez definitely.
Oh no, he got past Ocon right at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, and he pretty much passed most manufacturers.
Yeah.
Apart from obviously the guys in front like the AlphaTauri. Oh no, he would have passed Kvyat. So yeah, he pretty much passed.
Yeah.
Each car.
Yeah.
So
exactly. There's no excuse, Bottas.
He did very. Yeah. So there was really no excuse for Bottas. He was complaining about overheating, but we could see that same thing with Hamilton because he was pulling out the slipstream, but he was just placing his car in a much better spot. And I think that because he was making those moves so quickly, his car was able to recover a little bit, and he was able to keep having that momentum and moving forward. So
I've seen Bottas
gets an
do
E.
that so many times.
Shocker.
In wheel-to-wheel combat. He doesn't seem to have the confidence to lunge even with that Mercedes and like dive up the inside, because I'm sure it was Germany when he went off. He was again in a very similar position where the only cars in front of him was kind of like Kvyat and Stroll, I think it was. And he went off and he couldn't get past them either. So yeah, he doesn't seem to be great in traffic, does Bottas. No doubt amazing qualifying pace to be close to Hamilton, but yeah, not the one.
Doesn't have that racecraft.
No,
I don't remember the last time I've seen.
No.
I don't remember the last time I've seen a Bottas dive bomb. To be honest,
nope.
I don't think we've ever seen one.
Disappointing.
Let us know a Bottas dive bomb because I don't know. Right, he gets an E. Leclerc. Oh, what a shame. He could have won that race. He genuinely could have won that race.
It would have been a sitting duck on the straight, you'd think, but He was...
No, but I mean, without the red flag. He caused the red flag, didn't he? But
he was up there. I think...
you say that he was a sitting duck. He would have been in a net P3, I think.
Yeah, and we've seen what Charles has done, admittedly not on a track where there's such huge straight line speed, where they're useless at. But yeah, really unfortunate. I guess we have to mark him down, though, because it was inevitably his mistake. Yeah. But what a scary crash. I always find them a lot more shocking when it just cuts and they're going in really quick. Like, you don't see a slow-mo replay of it. It really, like, took me back. And it felt like ages before they showed him moving. And it was, very, very scary.
Crofty, to be fair to Crofty, he was very quick to say that Charles was moving in the cockpit. So... but yeah, okay, maybe Charles couldn't have won. Maybe that's me getting ahead of myself. But I think he definitely could have got a podium because he was in a very good spot. I don't know how he'd managed to get that Ferrari there, but he had.
They pitted, didn't they? Did they pit before the safety car?
Yeah, I think they pit
like Gasly.
Before the safety car.
Got to mark him
what
down
a shame.
For the mistake.
But he crashed
in a really good position.
D.
Yeah, D.
Unfortunately, otherwise it probably would have been an A. Yeah. So. D for Leclerc, Vettel. Wow. I mean, he can't really... we have to judge him in his qualifying, where he was out in Q1, where he was behind Leclerc.
He got mixed up with Russell, didn't he, on the qualifying controversy? So
he did,
but, I mean, he didn't make the first run. A D as well. It's not his fault that his brakes failed, but he didn't really show anything else to warrant that.
Outperformed quite heavily by Charles, has to be said. And then just was fighting with the Williams until his car broke. Verstappen, very off colour for Verstappen.
B or C? I think maybe C.
C. Yeah. You're not going to give him a B, surely. I mean, his
car was useless, but it's not. You'd think that he'd be able to do something with it. So just C. Yeah, not the weekend.
C for Verstappen. Albon gets an E. He got a 5-second penalty for pushing Kevin Magnussen off the track, I think it was.
Grosjean at the start, I think.
Was it Grosjean?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I mean, poor qualifying. I don't think we can really... And he's running last pretty much, no
Started
pace.
9th, finished 15th when an AlphaTauri won the race.
Pass Williams.
Yeah, it's got to be an E as well, unfortunately. Really is raining on him right now.
Yeah, not good. Carlos Sainz, A-star.
Easy
Peasy lemon squeezy. Great. I mean, he was in a legit P2 anyway.
Yeah, and he might have even...
But we forget about that.
He might have even won that race. Genuinely won the... He probably would have won the race if there wasn't this...
Without the red flag, yeah.
Because,
It would have been a McLaren 1-2. Without that red flag.
Mad.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, A-star easily for Sainz.
A-star for Carlos. A for Lando, I think.
Yeah. Finished fourth.
I don't think we can give him any less than that.
He got screwed by essentially Stroll and then Gasly, so he would have been, I guess you could say he might have been second with a bit more luck. And his move on, in fact, definitely an A because his move on Valtteri was an absolute worldie. So
worldie move. He didn't have the pace of Carlos this weekend. No. It seemed like he was maybe a tenth or two off in race pace, but he still managed to get P4, which is a great result for McLaren, and I don't think we can give him a B for that. So I think an A for Lando for that. Daniel Ricciardo, bit quiet really for Danny Ric, considering the circumstances of the race. Finished P6 in the end, didn't he?
He drove a really good race and finished just behind.
Put a great move on Bottas.
Yeah, and finished just behind Bottas, I believe, in the race, which you'd take. But unfortunately, Renault's still not getting a podium, even when the race is crazy like this. So that's disappointing for them. But I think Danny Ric is borderline A, maybe a B.
I think B. I was leaning towards B.
I guess qualifying, I feel like was anyone's between.
And he was on the wrong end of it, wasn't he? So I think B for Danny Ric, and Ocon I think gets a C.
Yeah, he was very
because he finished 8th.
Yeah, we've not mentioned he was very critical on. Well, no, he wasn't actually. I'm going to say he wasn't very critical, but I would argue that Renault. If you've not seen this video, try and find it. That Renault made it more of a thing.
Rob Watts F1 tweeted it.
Renault made it worse by essentially trying to shut him down. And I think if Ocon had just come on the radio and said, no, I don't agree that that's a good race, because they said, congratulations, 12th to 8th, I'm pretty happy with that. And Ocon was just like, no, I'm not. Which, as someone that's been working with Mercedes for a year, we take the piss out of Mercedes when they're unhappy for finishing second and third. So he's got that mentality in his head. And I totally understand why he would be a bit downbeat. I guess the problem was he was doing it on the radio where other people can listen. But I genuinely don't think that radio would have been picked up as much as it was if it hadn't have had Cyril Abiteboul and his engineer going, shush, shush, be quiet. No, don't say...
It wouldn't have been picked up at all.
They wouldn't have said anything. Even if it had been broadcast, no one would care.
They've made a much bigger meal and a much bigger talking point about it now that they've been telling their driver to shush.
Because it makes it look like, no, come on, everything's fine. When, obviously, it's not Ocon's right to say it, but I think it's true. Renault, AlphaTauri won a race, McLaren were second, Racing Point were third, and Renault still didn't get a podium. They weren't even in the top 5. So they need to... Yeah, they need a better mentality, I think. And I saw quite a few people say this, that if they're getting that arsy about a slight negative comment for an Ocon, they are going to have a very interesting time when Fernando Alonso joins that team.
So true. But yeah, I think Ocon, he has a right to be disappointed, but also he isn't outperforming Danny Rick, so he's going to have to do better himself. That Renault was put in 6th position. So... Yeah. That he needs to work on himself, but I completely agree. I find it baffling that Renault tried to shush him on the radio. It's like talking to a child.
Yeah. It's almost
it's embarrassing.
It's almost
really.
Like I think there was a stage in the Bernie era, wasn't there, where you weren't allowed to sort of criticize Formula One or you get a penalty. Like it's almost like that. It's like you will not speak ill of this team. When
I think it's because the big bosses were around with the new launch of the new name and stuff like that, but. Still,
George Russell was there like, why are we effing about in when he had exactly the same situation where he felt like he had a missed opportunity, and I don't feel like anyone sort of beat up George about that. So.
Nah, I mean, it's a different situation where Williams knows that they're absolutely nowhere near. Okay, so we'll give Ocon a C then for his performance. Gasly, I think a D.
Yeah, definitely. The funny thing is, I think, well, it's an A star. It's got to be. He maybe wasn't as good as Sainz because he got a little bit lucky by the safety car. However, I saw an interview with Ricciardo after the race. I don't know if you saw this, and he summed it up really nicely. And I think this sums up why he deserves an A star. Is yes, he got fortunate by the safety car, but when you're in that position and the amount of pressure you're under to deliver, the fact that he took his chance. You can't begrudge him for getting into the net lead of a race and winning it. It's kind of the same with Hamilton when people complain we're giving him an A star when he drives a perfect race. It's like it's not his fault. He's got the best car and is leading the race.
Do slow down, give us a great race, and then
Gasly A star.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. That shadow of a doubt. I've seen some embarrassing comments from Hamilton lovers saying, it's the most lucky win ever. Hamilton was driving so amazingly. The fact people can find some sort of negativity from a story like that, I genuinely feel sorry for you. Like, it is awful that people can find negativity from that kind of win.
I love being a neutral from the sport. I think we mentioned it there that we have our favourite drivers and people we like and dislike. But I think I said before that while I like Max Verstappen, if Nicholas Latifi is, closing him down to win a race, I'd want Latifi to win because it's a crazy story. And that exactly panned out. I couldn't care less that Verstappen has not finished in that race because Pierre Gasly won it and we had the most amazing story. And I think Formula One's a unique sport in a lot of people that like the sport aren't so focused on a driver. They just love the sport for what it is and it's like enjoyable, more like kind of football where it's just you're just your team. So
I've gone through phases. Well, I've gone through 2 phases. One phase when I was growing up where I was a Michael Schumacher blind fanboy and if he was out of the race I lost
when you're
interest.
Younger,
that's it.
I get it.
I up until Schumi retired for the second time, I didn't care where anyone else finished, really. I was just fully invested in Schumi's race. Now, I want to see Charles Leclerc do well, but when he crashed and it caused a red flag, obviously we saw he was okay, I was so excited to see how this race would unfold. And that is the beauty and such a better way of watching Formula One. I know some people can't see past their driver, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You can support who you want. But my goodness me, I prefer watching Formula One like this every day of the week because you enjoy every single spectacle, maybe not the boring ones so much.
Yeah.
But to see such a story like that, it was amazing. Anyway, let's moving on. We're kind of getting sidetracked. Kvyat, well, his teammate won the race. He finished
Ninth.
8?
11th to
P9.
9th.
Bit of a
he didn't get the lucky
race, really.
He didn't get fortunate for the safety car, which you can't really blame him on, but still, I think it's got a B is fair, I feel.
Yeah, in the points, and relative pace wise, they're probably where they deserve to be. But Kvyat, I didn't really see much of him, to be honest. So
yeah, I think B. Is fair.
Sergio Perez.
Intriguing because he was very quick in qualifying, had an amazing
Yeah,
qualifying.
he started fourth, right?
Yeah, fourth, finished 10th, so not the greatest race, but again, this is a weird one because there are a lot of midfield teams that are midfield drivers that some have really benefited from a safety car and some have really not benefited, and Perez is one of those people that's not benefited from it, so not a great race, but
yeah, it's
still
hard.
not really his fault.
Finishing 10th, not really making many positions up once he was in that position. These are the kind of races we expect from, let's expect Perez to be somewhere in the mix, and it was his teammate. As much as he got lucky, of course, but Perez didn't really make any positions up when he was in that position. So
no, true.
For me, C.
Yeah, let's go C.
Yeah, C for Perez. Happy with that?
Pushing into a B, but I think C is fair, yeah.
Okay, and Lance Stroll. Well, he got very lucky. He didn't even have to pit under the safety car. I mean, he didn't have to pit in the race because he could change his tyres during the red flag, which is still crazy in my eyes.
Yeah,
but hey, he got away with it. And he technically was net P1, wasn't he, when he started the red flag?
Yeah,
so,
I guess you have to mark him down. Like, I know Gasly, we mentioned, you can't knock him for essentially being in that winning position.
But he had a great start.
He had a great start, whereas Stroll was in the winning position. If you could argue even more than Gasly because he was second, and he didn't get the greatest of starts, and then he messed up at the chicane and let Sainz through. So, yeah, you've got to rate him down for that. So I think maybe a B. I think a B because maybe a C feels a little too harsh for someone that did get a podium.
He still had pace over the likes of Lando. He beat Bottas. There's still good elements to Stroll's race. It just wasn't what he could have potentially made it into. And to be fair, deep down, I'm kind of glad because I really wanted Gasly to win. So thank you, Stroll, for having an average start. But yeah, I think B, because if he'd been out in front, I think he would have been able to control it. But we don't know that because they've never won.
Yeah.
Sainz, Stroll and Gasly had never won. We don't know how they would, pretty much react when it comes to being in that position. So I think Stroll, let's give him a B. Kimi Räikkönen, I thought he was going to win the race at one point. He was looking absolutely fiery on those soft tyres. But unfortunately, they gave way, as did his car, because he just didn't have the performance. And he ended up finishing 13th.
Yeah, so weird when he was up there making moves. Because he came through the field, didn't he, a little bit? Because I saw you retweeted someone that put a bet on him at 2,500 to 1 or something.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That someone put an in-play bet, I think it was, when Räikkönen was up in 5th. I think they'd both got lucky, hadn't they? Giovinazzi hadn't got lucky because he pitted under the safety car, but I think Räikkönen had pitted just as the yellow flag came out. Because I guess a lot of the teams jumped on that and went, well, the safety car's going to come out. I reckon there was some decent thinking with some of the F1 teams, proper reacting to that, going, Magnussen's car's not going to be able to get through that gap. The pit lane's probably going to close.
Yeah,
so,
I wonder.
Yeah, shout out to the teams that did think that. But yeah, I don't know if he made many moves as such because he has a Ferrari power unit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I want to give him a B.
Yeah, I think we need to give him a B because he
second.
was up there. And 13th, you're not going to get any better than that in the car he's in, are you? So
no. Where did Giovinazzi end up? He was so far behind, wasn't he? After
he played the team game because he kind of let Kimi through on the restart because he knew he was going to get a penalty again, and I guess he dropped way back, just like Hamilton did. So 15th, C, maybe for
It's difficult. It's C or a D for me for Giovinazzi because it was nothing special, was it?
There was an interesting thing on Sky where they were talking about, I think it was Paul di Resta in free practice, and they were talking about who was going to get the Alfa Romeo seat and whether Giovinazzi was doing all right. And I can't remember who the co-commentator was, but they said, well, he's not that far off Kimi Räikkönen. But I think it was Paul di Resta that made an interesting point that was, if I know people will now be mentioning the teammate comparisons video we did, but if you look at how much better Vettel was at Ferrari than Räikkönen, seeing that Charles Leclerc, what Leclerc's doing to Vettel now, you kind of want that young driver to be beating Kimi. I know he's a world champion, but you need to be beating
40
him.
Odd, isn't he?
He's 40 years old, and they need to be beating him, and Giovinazzi doesn't seem to be. So, not been hugely wowed by him, and I think C maybe is fair, or a D.
I think D. I think D for Giovinazzi. He finished plumb last, and he was only up in that position because of luck. I think Räikkönen at least put up a fight and was up there without getting the penalty. And I don't know. I feel like it's different for Giovinazzi personally.
Okay, let's go D.
Yeah,
fine with that.
Okay, cool. Magnussen. He obviously stopped, caused a safety car. Want to give him an A star, but
would love
I don't think that would be fair for the ratings, would it?
No. I mean, looking at Grosjean's race, so Grosjean started behind him, but Grosjean had a really good race and finished 12th. I know Magnussen had a engine failure, but I don't think he was really in touching distance anyway, or was really doing anything that special. So maybe a C.
Let's
give him a little
Magnussen
extra
a C.
point just because he caused the greatest race in a long time, and it was thanks to him.
Exactly.
And
Grosjean, should we give him a B then?
Yeah,
he finished 12th.
12th in a Haas is a really good result, to be fair.
Okay, lovely. George Russell had a bit of a meh race, to be honest. He actually got beaten by Latifi after obviously that whole mix-up with the red flag. But safe to say, Latifi stayed there. He finished P11, Russell P14.
Yeah.
You can't really say that Latifi lucked into it and then didn't perform, because he did.
Yeah, we mentioned it a little earlier about when we were talking about Gasly and how he's kind of proved himself a race winner and stuff. George, it's very much too early to say at this point, but if it keeps happening where we get a bit of a crazy race and then Latifi almost got a point, obviously Kubica got a point in that race in Germany where Russell made a mistake, and if that keeps happening, while it's not a thing at the moment, I think it may start to become a thing and maybe putting a few doubts in Mercedes' mind. I mean, there's no doubt he's an unbelievable driver and got amazing pace and proved it, but he just needs to be putting in better race results when it's a bit crazy.
I think overall George has done pretty well.
I
think a lot of people forget that
like,
this is his second season, so it's not like he's a veteran of the sport. And if you look at what Verstappen was like, when he was in his second season, although a little bit younger, of course. But George is not exactly old.
No.
I think Russell didn't really perform.
His qualifying is phenomenal, but I think he just needs to. He needs a really good race, I think, to. Really.
Did he get out of Q1?
No, he didn't.
He didn't. Williams were rubbish.
They
so let's give Russell a C and Latifi a B. A.
Yeah. Latifi, like Gasly, he got into that position by a bit of luck and didn't lose it. So maybe an A. When are we going to give Latifi an A again? I think it's.
When is Latifi going to finish P11 again?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Okay, fair. Go on.
Let's
Why not? We're feeling generous.
A for Latifi, C for Russell. Right, Italian Grand Prix predictions. I went for Renault podium, which was no, even though it looked very likely going into it, and I thought that was going to be a decent shout. And Ferrari out in Q1. I said one of Ferrari. At least one Ferrari out in Q1. That's a point.
Okay. If you're sure.
Don't go back on the last podcast, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, so Tommy, your two?
Slipstream, controversy in qualifying, which I will take that easy point because it always happens at Monza.
I mean, I gave you that point when you said it.
And I have never been more happy about not getting a point. I did the jinx. 2 Mercedes and Max on the podium. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, that awesome. Is. Thank you so much, Tommy, for taking one for the team, because that was worth it.
Can you believe none of them were on the podium? Unbelievable.
It's crazy. It's actually ridiculous. An AlphaTauri, a McLaren, and a Racing Point on the podium.
Unbelievable.
Ridiculous. Paolo CT Leiter, Sainz P3, so close. So close, yet so far.
We're not giving
no
half
points.
a point.
No, because then he's too specific.
Yeah, true. You should learn.
Fans have to know.
Yeah.
If it says Sainz podium, that's a point. Sainz P3, 0 points. I'm sorry. Thomas J Stamp, Ferrari get lapped. They weren't in the race long enough to get lapped, although Charles definitely wouldn't have got lapped, but Vettel might have had he not had his brake failure and with the red flag. But alas, we don't know, do we, Tommy?
No, we don't. We will never know.
No points. Mugello GP predictions. I have now taken one for the team. I've gone for boring Mercedes 1-2. Don't worry, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And sunny throughout the whole weekend.
Nice. So you've gone for a double kind of jinx. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, maybe I'll get. If I get 2 points, I'll be sad.
Yeah, true.
Just saying. You, Tommy.
I have gone for Russell in Q2. Might be better circuit for them. And Leclerc, top 5 finish. I reckon he's going to pull it out of the bag for Ferrari. Also, there's rumours that they're going to run a 1950s livery.
Ooh.
Which we all know what happens when 1950s attire and things happen with Mercedes.
A terrible race. So you said Leclerc top 5 finish, and yet you think that the curse of Mercedes might hit them as well.
Oh, no, I might just hit Mercedes because any 1950s related thing just hampers Mercedes. So maybe, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Fans, Midwestern F1 fan, back to the usual podium crew. Okay, so that's similar to mine, but with the whole 3, Verstappen, Bottas and Hamilton. And Chili Vegas, 3 different cars in the top 3. So hopefully fans will be scoring a point this coming week. And if not, something very strange has happened. But that is it. Thank you so much for watching the WTF1 podcast, everybody. Tommy, anything to add before we go?
No, just join us for another podcast. We're in such a good mood from that race. We're going to give you 2.
Lovely. We are. Look forward to it as well. It's a very special guest on that one. So make sure you go and tune in when it goes out, where we'll be discussing everything about reverse grid races. Thank you so much to everybody for watching and listening. Give us 5 stars, a thumbs up. However you want to give us your good feedback, please do. Use the hashtag WTF1 podcast for any suggestions, ideas, feedback, anything you want to say. And that is it. Thank you so much, Tommy. I'm waving at you right now.
Bye.
And we'll see you, for Mugello Grand Prix.
Tuscan Grand Prix. Or the
Ferrari
Ferrari 1000
very soon.
Grand Prix celebration, whatever it's called.
Yes, the 1000. Thank you so much, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.